Whether you bond over streaming binge-worthy videos, watching sports recaps, video gaming, or by unplugging altogether, the 2026 Lincoln Nautilus Hybrid helps keep you connected throughout your journey. Learn more at Lincoln.com. Available connectivity features and functionality vary by model. Package pricing, trials, and term lengths vary by model. Video streaming and games are only available while parked.
Every sip of Coca-Cola brings you closer to the excitement of the FIFA World Cup 26. Because nothing compares to the joy. So grab a Coke and drink in the FIFA World Cup 26. No purchase necessary. 13 plus in 50 U.S. states and D.C. with a web-enabled device. Ends March 1st with 8 entry periods. Rules at cokeurl.com/soccer rules.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the HuntStand podcast, and this is your host, Will Cooper. On today's episode, we're going to be bringing on our executive editor, Mark Melotik. Now, Mark is an award-winning editor, journalist, and formerly he was with Bow Hunting World and Archery Business magazines. Mark's a bow hunter, upland bird hunter, fly angler, and he does a lot of our content production, editing, and publishing for HuntStand. So what are we going to be bringing Mark on for? Now, aside from getting to know Mark and introducing Mark to all of y'all out there, we're going to be talking how to plan for big woods public land whitetail. Now, this is a little bit unfamiliar territory for myself since I'm a Texas boy, born and raised, and so done a lot of that my whole life, but we're going to be bringing Mark on to talk today for different strategies, how to plan, what to look for, e-scouting, and a lot more. And so if you're wanting to learn about this, you definitely want to tune in. You don't want to miss out on this. And again, thank you to everybody for tuning in to this episode of the HuntStand podcast. Make sure you're subscribed, rate and review for us. It greatly helps us out. We really appreciate it. So again, thanks for tuning in, and we hope y'all enjoy this episode of the HuntStand podcast. All right, everybody, we're live. Welcome back to the HuntStand podcast, and today we have our executive editor from HuntStand, Mark Melotik, on. Mark, just want to thank you for taking the time to hop on the podcast with us today.
Well, thanks for having me, Will. Great to be here, man.
Man, now, how long have you been working with HuntStand?
Well, it's a good question. That's a good question. As many viewers, I guess, might know, I started out with digitally with ScoutLook, the ScoutLook hunting app. And as many of you probably know, HuntStand acquired ScoutLook not too long ago. So that's how I became a HuntStand employee. So altogether, on the digital side of thing, it's been, I'm in my 8th year. So
nice.
And before that, I had a long stint with Grand View Outdoors as an editor of Bow Hunting World and Archery Business magazine. So I was with those guys for 17 years. So
okay.
Yeah, been in the industry a long time.
So you're an archery nut like me then.
Oh, for sure, man.
So, Mark, I like to start out this podcast with what I like to call 30-foot tree stand view of the guests that we have on. So let's give the listeners a quick, 30-foot tree stand view of who you are, where you're from, and just tell us a little bit about yourself, man.
Yeah, so I'm the executive editor for HuntStand, and again, been in the industry for a whole long time. Grew up in Wisconsin, just south of Milwaukee, and that's kind of where my passions for hunting started. Boy, I was as you might guess from an editor, I've always been a big reader, and I was always going through my dad's issues of Outdoor Life, Sports Afield, and Field and Stream, and even back then, that's kind of where my passions for BIGWOODS hunting started. Stories by freelancers like James Churchill, who lived up in far northeast Wisconsin, and he was my kind of guy. He was a bow hunter, he was a trapper, he was a predator hunter, a deer and bear hunter. man, he built his own log cabin. I mean, he was everything that I wanted to be. So like, it's kind of how it all started for me. But, and I always kind of knew even back then that I wanted to be, a writer, a hunting writer, an outdoor writer at some level. And it's kind of funny now, even these days, I look back on it, even when I was in college. I was like, everybody's like, well, what are you going to do after college? I'm like, well, back then, as many of you, again, probably know, that the Minneapolis area was just a hotbed of outdoors publishing, lots of different magazines. And that's where Bow Hunting World and Archery Business were based back then. And
gotcha.
And I told everybody, I said, boy, I'll probably end up in Minneapolis, in that area. And sure enough, that's just what happened. So kind of cool. But yeah, I could see it coming from a long ways off.
Man, that's pretty cool. So basically, sounds like your dad's the one who originally planted the seed for hunting with you.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. He came from a big duck hunting family, actually.
Really?
And yeah, they were just rabid duck hunters, and they had a cottage on Big Lake Puckaway in Wisconsin. And back then, boy, there was so much marsh on that lake. It was just it was a duck paradise, and those guys really got into that. And of course, the fishing there too. But man, my dad got started in bow hunting too, and he joined a sportsman's club, and he started going to like target shoots with his Bear Polar LTD compound, if you remember that name. And
old school.
Yeah, old school. And I remember going to those target shoots with him, and man, he was pretty hardcore. He even built his own climbing stands. They were like, as you recall, way back when they had the Baker climbing tree stand. And my dad was a guy that, man, if he could build it himself, he's not going to buy it, he's going to build it type guy. And
yeah.
Boy, I'll tell you what, he built just about everything, and he even built his own climbers. And at some point, he gifted me a Bear Whitetail Hunter compound bow, and that was at an early age. That was my first compound. But man, I remember when I got that bow, I couldn't even pull it back, even at its lowest setting. But I grew into that sucker,
yeah.
And man, it all came together at some point, and just my love for bow hunting just continued.
Heck yeah, man. And look at you now, man, getting to do it for work. So aside from deer hunting, which we all love to do, what other type of game do you enjoy chasing? You like chasing after a big elk, a mule deer guy. What does Mark like to do outside of whitetail?
Well, I guess, growing up in Wisconsin and living in Minnesota right now, whitetails is a big part of it for sure. But man, I love the West. I've always loved the West, chasing elk. And man, that's kind of one of my favorite hunts, to tell you the truth, because it combines a couple passions for me, like the do-it-yourself backcountry camping and hunting. I just love that when you can combine those two passions. But I like it all, man. I mean, again, there's only so many days in the year, as you well know, when things are good. And but yeah, it's hard to cram all my interest in. I'm a big fisherman. Man, if I could, I'm still looking for my first moose. I need to get that done someday soon. But man, I like to chase it all.
Same here, man. So let's start diving into big woods, public land whitetail. This is kind of unfamiliar territory for myself, but I know this is something you're super passionate about. So let's dive in, man. It's February at the time of that we're recording this. So, this is a time of year where a lot of guys are potentially getting new bows, new equipment. They're making plans for 2022. And this is just kind of that time of year where you're prepping, you're getting ready. So obviously, if you're a big woods, public land whitetail guy, what does that process look like in getting started for Mark? from a research side, e-scouting. Let's dive into it, man.
Well, I'll tell you what, this is just, February, January, February. That's just the time to get started when you're talking about big woods. And, this all comes back to, if you're a big woods, do-it-yourself public land fan like me, and say you're new to the HuntStand app, if you find that sucker, you probably feel like you just hit the motherlode jackpot because your scouting abilities are about to hit new heights.
Yeah.
And comparably, Will, as you probably know, nothing even comes close to being as helpful for planning your hunts as the HuntStand app. And we're going to get into all that in a bit here. But, I've been a huge mapping guy my whole life. So my collection of topo maps and county plat books is probably as impressive as any you're going to find, right? I have always considered maps to be absolute necessities when you're planning a hunt and you really are trying to figure it out and get to the best hunting spots. I just always have. So,
100%.
Yeah, they just give you that power of insight, man. And, with an app, of course, you got every map in North America in your back pocket, right? Mm-hmm. So you can compare and contrast areas instantly, and you can find those productive hunting areas, and you can do it like right now. So what used to take days and weeks with a hunting app is taking just mere minutes. So what I like to do is you start with an area in a particular state where you have some interest. You got to start someplace. And then you use that HuntStand, all the many HuntStand map layers. And I'm probably looking for maybe the public land layer or the hunting lands layer to focus that search a little bit closer to the bone and trying to figure something out. So
let me ask you real quick, Mark. Before we get too deep, we've got listeners out there that I don't think they may not have necessarily heard about Big Woods public land whitetail. And I know there's going to be a question of, what exactly is Big Woods? I mean, obviously we all know what public land, but Big Woods, what does that mean in terms for the listener that may not know?
That's a good question. Yeah. And that definition for me is probably, those areas that just don't have any agriculture, and that those take many forms, but those deer are not going to crop fields to eat. They're foraging in the woods for any number of things, but yeah, you're not finding those crops. It's just, it can be long stretches. There can be some fields and stuff, but those aren't, crop fields. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of my basic definition. And those can be, anywhere pretty much in the United States. I mean, you got the Shawnee National Forest down in southern Illinois or whatever. But, for my purposes, I'm a upper Midwest guy. And when I think of big woods, I think of, northern Wisconsin, northern Minnesota, lots of areas of Canada, of course. But that's what I think of the big woods.
Got it. So then that's, like you were just saying, that's when HuntStand is super crucial when planning hunts for this.
Oh, it really is. It really is. And it starts too with effectively reading maps once you've got them in your hand, right? And that kind of comes with experience. The more hunting you do, the better you get at finding those hot spots on maps that are related to the terrain. I mean, a lot of people talk about funnels and pinch points and edges. I mean, those are all valid areas, right? Elevation changes, benches, waterways are critical in the big woods. And I learned early on that, rivers and creeks, those are deer highways, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so especially in the big woods, they're using those continuously as travel routes. And, recent slashes and cutovers in the big woods, you're going to find those logging operations. And man, once those start growing back, those are incredible bedding areas. They're incredible feeding areas for those big woods deer. By me, where I'm at, and I do a lot of hunting in northwest Wisconsin, there's new growth aspens that have been planted after those cutovers, and they're designed basically maybe to enhance the grouse habitat. But of course, they become deer magnets.
Yeah.
And those are some of my favorite areas. So
when this time of year, you got HuntStand pulled up on your desktop and you're trying to plan this hunt for the upcoming fall. What is the first thing that you're going to begin to look for when trying to find deer for this hunt?
One of the biggest reasons why you start this process now, there's a couple of them, but the more you know now about the spots that you want to hunt, the faster you can get on those bucks come September, come the openers.
Yeah.
And what you're trying to do is you're trying to establish a trap line of sorts of potential areas. But what I like to do is once I figure out these areas that kind of look good, and again, I'm looking for those funnels, I'm looking for those pinch points that are natural and travel routes and things like that. But what you want to do is you want to get a list of those as sort of like your trap line. And then you want to walk those. You want to put the boots on the ground in my favorite time of the year for scouting, which is late March or April, right after that snow leaves. And Moy, I'll tell you what, that is the time to be in the woods, because that's my favorite time to scout, because all the sign from the previous fall is visible. I mean, it's all there for you, man. It's so cool. You get the rubs that you can determine are last falls. You get the scrape lines. I mean, you're even maybe finding some sheds of some of the survivors while you're doing that. So that's a huge, huge time for me to be in the woods. And again, you want to be in those areas where you already think that these are some good looking areas that I need to check out. But my best hunts, my best big woods hunts have always started with those boots on the ground, late winter scouting. And what you're doing is, mark that sign too. You've got the HuntStand app with you. You're finding those rubs. You can make a rub line or follow it out. And my goodness, it's giving you it's drawing you a map to where that buck was hanging out, where he was bedding at a certain time of the year. And that's just huge information for you. So, and you're dropping those pins in your HuntStand maps. Maybe you're changing the color to make those instantly visible for the stuff that you found this spring, right? So you know that's all valid come the fall. So you start to build those maps up in your app, and again, it lets everything come together so much quicker in the fall. So what are you looking for? Those big rubs, I'll tell you what, a lot of people have a lot of different opinions on the size of rubs, but where I'm at, and the size of tracks and all that kind of thing. But boy, I'll tell you what, in my experience, those big rubs don't lie. You find those big, 4-6 inch diameter on up. Those are big bucks. Those are bucks that I'm looking for to hunt, and that big sign doesn't lie in my experience. So
now when you're doing this late winter scouting and you're talking about getting boots on the ground, and you're looking for bedding areas, you're looking for sheds, you're looking for rubs, and you're looking for all this different sign, are you really concerned at all about blowing these deer out? Or just, obviously I think they'd come back, but you're not worried about blowing up the area too much?
I'm not, because maybe those deer are not even there. I mean, I'm not sure where they are at that point, but a lot of this is rut sign, to tell you the truth. And those deer are going to be there when you want to hunt, but they're probably not even in the area at that point. I'm not worried about that at all. Not at that time of the year for sure.
Right. So in these big woods, you don't have the luxury of cornfields, bean fields. You don't have that luxury. So aside from, creek bottoms, waterways, saddles, and everything, pinch points that we're talking about, from a browse perspective or a food source, what are you trying to find to maybe hone in on for these deer?
Outside, that's a good question, but outside of, some of the more obvious stuff, um, acorns are always great early on if you can find um, isolated stands of that those are always good starting points. Beyond that, I'm not a big fan. Again, I'm looking for travel routes, stuff that there is going to funnel that activity, those deer, um, despite what they're eating or browsing on, because it can be so varied in the big woods, and that's probably one area that I guess I am less concerned about. I like to hunt those travel routes, and once you establish where those rub lines are and things like that, I'm hunting those areas where I kind of know a big buck exists and is living. Not a too concerned about the food.
Gotcha. One of the things that I want to ask you, I know some guys do this and some don't. When you've got those boots on the ground, you're looking for these trails, pinch points, and you're walking. Do you like to turn your tracker on HuntStand and walk these so that way whenever you just go on a big hike that day, you go walking around, you're walking down these trails exactly where these deer have been walking, and then when you leave that afternoon or evening, you go back home and then you pull up HuntStand and you can see your tracks. Does that help you when determining stand locations for the fall as well?
I haven't done a whole lot of that, to tell you the truth. It's a great aspect of the app that allows you to do that for sure. I certainly would recommend it. But I'm more in the mode of, boy, I'm trying to cover as much area as I possibly can. Everybody's got different situations. I'm trying to maximize my scouting time and just trying to cover huge areas, which can get a little bit convoluted in the spring, especially late winter, spring, when that snow has just left. And I'm just trying to cover as much area as I possibly can. So that's a little less impactful to how I do things. But like you said, I mean, that's a very valid strategy if you're looking at a smaller area, I guess.
Gotcha. Now, are you you like putting ground blinds like pop-ups when you go into big woods? Are you liking hang-on stands like your lone wolves and everything, or are you a saddle guy?
Well, that's another good question. And right from the start, I have been a tree stand guy, to tell you the truth. Gear is critical for how I like to hunt. And for me, lightweight stand systems have always been a very critical part of how I like to hunt, because in a lot of these public land areas, you're basically taking down your stands after the day is done, and you're bringing it back. So you're hanging and hunting and coming back. So a big question for me in the past has always been, well, how do you transport that? And in the past, I've built my own specialized tree stand pack, just to be able to be more efficient. And what I did is I used a freighter type external frame type backpack frame, and I attached some nylon straps to it and some buckles that can hold not only your stand and your climbing sticks, which I really like to use, but also maybe a hook for your backpack too. And because there was really, at that time, and we're talking 15, 20 years ago, there really wasn't anything on the market that was really that served my purposes, that I could find was really efficient enough. Currently, one of my favorite packs for this kind of thing is Sitka's cargo box pack, and that can easily carry your stand and your climbing sticks, which I really like.
Okay.
You mentioned saddles, and I think for me, this is something that I really wanted to dive in a little bit more. I've been slow to jump onto that saddle situation. I've used a little bit in the past. I was really hoping to get a little bit more saddle research in last fall. Still looking for the best systems. I think they hold a lot of promise for how I like to hunt.
Yeah.
In my I guess brief exposure to saddles, what I can see is, early season, they are just, the thing to do, I think, because you got lightweight camo on. You're trying to move as fast as you can and as far as you can in some cases. And boy, they'll let you really range out there, of course. And you're just less encumbered when you're in its early season. One of the concerns I've got with saddles is once you get later into the season, you get those bulky clothes that I wear, a lot. And just moving around with that. And last year I started just getting into the self-filming thing, and that was another thing I had to carry. So I was just trying to make everything as efficient as possible. So I stuck with my tree stand system instead of doing kind of the research that I wanted to on saddles. But hey, again, in the future, I'm hoping to one of my goals this winter and spring is to determine what are some of the best systems possible for saddles, and then use that heavily this fall. So I'm excited about that.
Man, I got to tell you, I picked up a Tethered this past year, one of their saddle kits. And, there were instances when I went to Colorado where I came across wallows, but there just wasn't a great spot to sit on the ground. But of course, Colorado, there's plenty of aspens, plenty of tall trees to climb up. And I had wished I'd had a saddle then, but I had also wished that I had it when I went hunting in Nebraska the first week in November during the rut, that we were set up in some ladder stands that they were just 200 to 100 yards off of the travel path of where these deer were going every morning, that had I had a saddle, I felt that I could have gotten in on them much easier. But I think I really enjoy them. I think you would definitely like them as well. Just how light they are, and just the capability it allows you as a hunter to just go up in almost any tree to easily adjust on the fly during any hunt. So they're pretty dang nice.
No, that's awesome. That's great to hear. And again, I've seen these used by several people and recommended by several people. And again, I'm hoping to really dive into that whole hog this year and really give those a good try. So yeah, I'm excited because again, it just plays into exactly what I'm looking for in a big wood situation, because you are covering in many cases lots of ground. And the lighter, you can't get light enough gear. I mean, right?
That's true. Yeah.
So
back to we talked about e-scouting, getting into these big woods, public land deer. And I want to talk a little bit about the winds and thermals. There's some areas that are pretty flat, and there's other areas that you've got lots of drainages, ridges, big saddles, drop-offs, things like that, just depending on what part of the country you're in, for lack of better terms. But let's say you can't get your boots on the ground, right? Like, let's say I'm going to come up to your neck of the woods and do some big woods hunting with you, but I'm down here in Texas. It's hard for a guy like me to, sneak up there once or twice to do some preseason scouting. So what would you tell that guy there in terms of e-scouting and looking at winds and thermals? How big a part are the thermals for the big woods hunting, and how do you determine winds as well?
I do a lot of it's a tricky deal. It always is. And some of these areas you're just going to have to go by ear and hunt them and see kind of how those thermals are reacting. There's really no other way at times. But you like to hedge your bets. So I do a lot of hunting in big river valleys, right? And they're going to have those sort of steep drop offs sometimes around them. And so some of the first times that I'll hunt them, I'll try to stay as high as possible, and just play those winds that you're going to find on HuntStand. those are going to lead the way, always, really, to give you some kind of a direction.
Would you say that those river valleys give you a pretty consistent thermal and wind? Like you're going to have fairly consistent thermals and winds with those, like you're talking about?
Again, if you're up on top, the higher you are, the better, I think. I mean, and then, you're going to see those, the thermals drop down in the evening, which is, prime time in a lot of those situations. And they can be consistent. Man, I'll tell you what, it can be frustrating at times, though. And again, every spot seems to have its own little intricacies that you can only learn by hunting it. But
that's for sure.
I mean, it's always a difficult situation. But again, I like to start out a little bit higher, and then depending upon what HuntStand is saying on the direction, that'll give you that edge a little bit. And then you can fine tune your location a little bit as you see exactly what's going on in your particular situation.
All right, Joe, we're going to interrupt this podcast real quick just to take a quick second to thank some partners of HuntStand that we've been working with for quite a while now. And so we just want to give a quick shout out to WorkSharp, the knife sharpening company. We also want to give a shout out to Alps Outdoors. Exceed your expectations. So these are some partners that we've been working with a while now, and so we just want to thank them for their support of HuntStand and all we do over here. But we just wanted to take a quick second to interrupt this podcast, but now we're going to get right back to it. Gotcha. So aside from e-scouting, boots on the ground, what else is Mark doing to prep and get ready for these big woods public land hunts in the fall?
Well, I mean, staying in shape is always a good help, because again, like I mentioned, I'm always looking for. It kind of brings up the discussion where there's kind of two schools of thought too when you're looking for these big wood spots.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of guys say, hey, you don't have to go deep to get into great hunting, and you don't have to go deep to get into some really big deer that a lot of people walk by. That's going to happen sometimes, for sure. And those, big bucks are where you find them, right? I mean,
yeah.
Some are always just going to be in areas that they are just for whatever reason. They feel comfortable in a certain situation. But in my experience, going deep away from the crowds is always going to be a better situation. I mean, most of the vast majority of the time, you're going to find deer that are less pressured, a little less on edge. But more importantly, you're not going to have somebody come in there and blow one of your setups, which, I really try to avoid at all costs. So I'm always going to try to go in a little bit deeper. And so how do you really avoid, the pressure, the hunting pressure, the weekend hunting pressure? In my experience, you got to put a major barrier between parking areas and hunting areas. I'm always looking for waterways. Some of my biggest and most valuable pieces of big woods hunting gear are waders, hip boots, and canoes.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if you can put a waterway between you and the major parking areas and your hunting spot, waterways seem to just freak people out. Even a stream that you could probably wade up to your knees, and I have many of those areas. Guys just don't want to cross those. Most guys just won't go through that hassle because they have to bring that extra gear along. You get over there, suddenly you're into territory that 90% of people wouldn't even consider. So I'm a big advocate of hunting around waterways. And even if you're crossing, say, a major lake to get to the other side,
yeah,
where it might be remote and there's hardly any access, guys could certainly walk around that lake if they wanted to. but how many are going to put forth that effort to get to the other side without a boat?
True.
Very few. Again, and again, you're just trying to isolate yourself and get into areas where there's just less hunting pressure. It's
Man,
huge for me.
I didn't even think about water before you said that, because I was going to ask you, how many miles are you going and how far are you going back? Because that's, just being a big game Western guy myself, it's always how far can you get back there? And it kind of never crossed my mind to think about, waterways, lakes, rivers, streams that you got to get across. That's a pretty big takeaway right there. That's pretty key.
Again, it's one of my go-to strategies. I've literally worn out hip boots just crossing streams for hunting.
Mm-hmm.
And one of my favorite spots is it's a relatively big river. It's probably 70, 80 yards wide where I'm crossing it. But and you look at it, and you look at it and you're thinking, well, there's got to be some hugely deep water between here and the other side. I'm not going to do that. And lo and behold, it is only up to my knees. Not a huge lift, but nobody else really wants to try that. Very few people.
What other kind of little golden nuggets like that, if you will, do you have up your sleeves when it comes to big woods public land hunting, like that you want to share with us?
Well, I'll tell you what, that's one of the big ones for me. And when I look at, when I grab HuntStand and I'm looking for a new place to hunt, the biggest part, you might go to some of the layers that show access points and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always looking for those isolated areas that are going to take that extra effort to get to. I mean, that's kind of where it starts for me. I mean, that's where I want to do my scouting. I just feel so much better about the whole situation. Again, I mean, between that and one of the biggest tips again is those rivers and creeks being funnels for local game activity, and where you a situation where maybe a creek intersects a larger stream.
Mm-hmm.
Now you've got, several different travel routes that are coming in there. Those are kind of the X's that I like to look for, because to me that's an instant potential hotspot.
I think everybody listening right now needs to take some notes on that.
For sure, because again, that's just been so consistent for me. Other than that, other great ones for me are areas where big woods marshes and things like that. I mean, you hear this one a lot, but beaver dam crossings
mm-hmm.
in those marshes, where it can be, in a wet year, getting through that swamp is pretty much crazy. But it seems like those larger bucks really like to get down to those pinch points to cross those big stretches, and most often those points are going to have a beaver dam situation where they can cross. I've seen that many, many times, and great stand sites if you can get just the right situation there.
So, we're talking big woods and everything. I guess a question I have, and this is probably just ignorance on my part, but I guess you also need to look at state regulations, but do you camp back in any of these spots as well, or you're getting out at night each time?
Well, camping is certainly a possibility.
Mm-hmm.
And again, as a bull hunter, probably more, I'm lucky enough to have a family cabin that I have access to in my favorite big woods areas. So in those situations, actually, I'm coming out every night. Can you camp? The situation with scent and bow hunting is so critical that I'm trying to get a shower every night if I can. Is it critical? That brings up a whole nother situation. One of my favorite all-time big woods hunts is the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness in far northern Minnesota, and you're canoeing into these areas, and of course you're camping at that stage. But what's super nice is, man, there's no competition in my experience when you're back into these areas in the boundary waters. You're basically hunting Canada without an outfitter, which to me is a little slice of heaven.
Oh, heck yeah. I'm going to have to remember that. That sounds like a pretty sweet spot to get in there. So obviously it sounds like you're probably camping in on stuff like that.
Absolutely. Yep. And that's a hunt that's very critical with gear. It's an adventure. And I've done that hunt several times, and it's the absolute best big woods hunts that I would recommend for anybody. But it's a commitment for sure to get into that situation. Gear is so critical. Timing is critical. With the boundary waters, as the hunting starts getting good, it can freeze up at any time.
Yeah.
So you're back in there, and all of a sudden, your lake gets frozen. I mean, it's never happened to me, but the edges of the lakes have certainly started freezing. We're talking about late October, early November, and it's a great hunt to combo up, say a bow hunt and a rifle hunt in the same hunt. And I've done that with friends too. But again, that's that's one of my favorite hunts, the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness in far northern Minnesota. And the situation there it's very similar to any big woods hunt. And to really do that hunt well, I think you have to commit to going in to scout in probably April. Late April is when the snow is going to go out there. And again, you're seeing all that sign from the previous fall. And the nice thing about the Boundary Waters is, you're not hoping, like in most areas of maybe northern Wisconsin or Minnesota, that buck didn't get shot during the season. What you're hoping is it didn't get killed by wolves. Or a severe winter. And if you don't have a severe winter, there's a really good chance that buck is going to be there running those same areas come that fall. And I've run into that too. So that's a really, really exciting hunt for those reasons. Your only competition out there is really the wolves and the weather. Having said that, of course, there have been situations where severe weather can just decimate the local deer herd up there. And
yes, it can.
Yeah, I mean, I'm talking about early 2000s. It was just a great time to be up there. 2003, 2004, 2005. Big bucks running around constantly, everywhere. Great sign, and then a bad winter strikes, and you go up there, and I've had this happen where it was a barren wasteland with just tiny buck sign, and you see that, and all that hard work of getting in there goes for naught. But that's part of it too, and your research should tell you that yes, they had a severe winter, and there probably is some serious winter kill. But I'm a bow hunter, man. I'm always optimistic. You only need one, right?
Yeah.
So there's always a few that get through. But at the same time, those heavy, severe winters can really lay those deer low.
Yes, they can. Now, another question I have for you: with all this, are you utilizing game cameras heavily? Are you going out and dropping cell cameras, or are you just going in and dropping some, letting them soak for a couple of weeks, couple months, and then coming back in and picking them up?
Increasingly over the last several years, I have. I mean, you got to watch your state regs.
Yep.
And exactly know what you can and can't do with game cameras, with trail cameras. In a lot of areas, they are possible. And again, I have used them. to great effect. But I can tell you in the past, they haven't been a huge part of what I do in the big woods. I like to figure out the sign and see areas that look very promising. And I know that, well, you've heard this many times, trail cameras aren't going to tell the whole story and, all the time. And a lot of this is rut sign too, I mean, a lot of these areas that I like to hunt are not going to be super productive until that late October time frame, that to mid-November, when the rut's kicking in and those deer are traveling and they're moving.
Right.
So if you can, if regs do allow you to find those areas, or possibly big bucks when earlier in the season, that's a super feather in your cap, of course. If you can get those and know where that home core area is for a couple big bruisers, that's a huge advantage for sure.
Love it. What kind of advice would you give to somebody before they head out to chase whitetail on public lands in the big woods? What's going to be the biggest advice? Whether that's 2, 3, 4 different points. Well, what are you going to give that guy or girl that's looking to do this?
Well, I mean, you gotta, first of all, you gotta figure out what you're in the game for. And one of the biggest things for me is the fact that I'm hunting in the big woods. I mean, I love the big woods, man. And I know I could be chasing bigger deer, or I guess deer with more inches on the top of their heads elsewhere. But for me, where I'm hunting and how I'm hunting is huge. So, man, again, I like everything about the big woods. And a deer or not, you're always going to play the chess game. You're always going to run into some, and you're going to be in the game if you know what to look for and you've done your homework and scouting. You're always going to be in the game. It's not always going to come together for you. And you got to be okay with that. I think, it's not a high percentage success area. It just isn't, the deer density isn't there. So many different factors. The nutrition, it just isn't there. Again, to consistently turn out those top end racks. I mean, it certainly can. Those bucks certainly do show up, and they're there, which is, again, part of that great chess game. But that is the biggest one for me. If you're gonna like where you're hunting, love where you're hunting, and it'll make your whole experience so much better for you. So, Will, once you determine the big woods is where you want to be, some of the other tips that I would add would be, don't forget your calls from opening day of the season to maybe October 20th or so here in the upper Midwest. Don't forget your grunt and bleat calls. They are critical for positioning, passing bucks and just getting them to come those extra few yards is what I've seen, and especially bleat calls. I mean, they seem to be, they're so non-threatening, but man, buck will come through and just be inquisitive about that. And so I'm never without those two calls for sure.
Okay.
But from about November or October 20th on until, the mid-November, whenever the rut is tailing down, I also add a rattling system. So I'm carrying those 3 calls, and in the big woods, again, all 3 of those calls have saved my bacon many times.
Which one do you tend to lean on heavier than the other?
For a long time, the grunt was my go-to pretty much all season. And, it is such a universal call, and you can make that aggressive. You can make it less aggressive. But in the early season now, I'm seeing so many good responses to the bleat call. I mean, because that is the ultimate in non-aggressive calls, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you just can't hardly scare a deer with a bleat call.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I see a passing buck, pretty much at any time, that's probably the one I'm going to start with. It's some type of bleat call, and then maybe go to the grunt. And after that, when they're out of range and you can't see them anymore, I wait a little bit, and then, depending upon how I feel, I'll try that aggressive rattling system. And, if they're intrigued at all by that, they'll be running in on that one. So again, those 3 calls are just my go-tos. I always have them close by. Again, the rattling system from about October 20th on, the grunt and bleat all the time.
Yeah.
So especially again for public land, and you've heard that rattling can be a no-no on heavily hunted public land. And for the most part, I'm going to agree with that. If you overdo the rattling, that's probably not going to be good. But there are spots I'll only rattle once or twice shortly after, say, first light, if it's a nice calm morning or whatever, and that'll be it. I'm not going to revisit that call again unless I get really desperate. But that's worked for me on a couple occasions on big woods bucks, and I like a nice little compact rattling system. I don't usually take full on antlers with me, but
you just like to take a rattle bag.
It's actually the one I use a whole lot is the pack rack from Night and Hail.
Yeah.
And I don't even know if that thing is being made still, but goodness, I like the compact nature of that thing, and it sounds great. And I have called, top end bucks in with that thing. I mean, serious full on booners.
Serious.
Yeah. That's been in some of my honey holes in Kansas, of course, where the quality can be crazy. But yeah, that little guy has proven itself time and time again. And I just love the fact that you can just throw that in the pack and you're not taking up hardly any space, and you're not really giving up effectiveness at all over even, full on regular rattling antlers.
Heck yeah. Oh.
So
heck, I need to get me one of those. In fact, I just looked it up real quick while you're saying that. They're still made, my friend.
And that does not surprise me because of how effective that is. I think Night and Hail, as far as some of the calls that they do made, many of them have been, suspended. But man, that's one I would never get rid of ever. It's just too good. Just too good.
I'm definitely going to have to add that one to the deer hunting arsenal. So
I would recommend it. Another thing I would focus on is just remember to cache your hunt areas in HuntStand, because the definition of big woods where I'm at, it's remote lands. You don't have that service typically, but if you cache that hunting area, it's so nice to be able to make yourself see yourself on the map, making your way to your stand or whatever. Man, you just cache those areas, and you can access those maps, and it is so handy. And once I figured out that was possible, man, that opened up a whole new avenue to me as well. Because people are always saying, well, apps are great, but what happens when you don't have any service? Well, there is a way around it. Cache your maps. So HuntStand offers that. It's awesome.
There is a way. Heck yeah.
There is a way.
Make sure you got plenty of storage on your phone.
Well, that helps. That helps for sure.
Yeah.
Another tip would be don't get lazy, especially when I work so hard to get back to some of these areas, like I said, where maybe we're crossing a waterway or whatever. And what I mean by that is stay all day in some of these areas, because you're only bumping deer when you're coming back, after the morning hunt. And then if you want to go back there, you're get a chance to bump deer again. I mean, staying all day is tough. And if you can't do it, I would recommend, especially if the wind changes, I will also say, don't get lazy. You need to change then, right? So if you got a saddle, that's pretty easy. Even in the compact, hang-ons that I use and with sticks, it's not that difficult to switch your stand. But you need to do it, right? You need to hunt smart. So, but a lot of guys I see, they're trying to, they get back and they want to get in for lunch or whatever. Again, starting from about October 20th on, it's so beneficial to have those all day hunts. I know it's hard. Bring some lunch, bring some food for sure. Because, that's the first thing that's probably going to drive you home.
Yep.
But pack some food and, it'll go a long way. So those are a couple of the other tips that I would say, have helped me over the years and when you're doing the big woods thing.
I like it, man. Great advice. So a couple of things I want to talk with you about too is, HuntStand, we've got a lot of great things in the workforce coming down the pipeline in 2022. What are you excited about for this upcoming year? And is there anything that you can or that you'd like to share about HuntStand moving into 2022?
There's just so many great features of HuntStand. And boy, so many that I depend on regularly. I'm going to throw out the property lines feature, which just continues to be a game changer for somebody who's involved with public land hunting and knowing those boundaries and trying to find those little areas of public land that a lot of people don't go to and don't frequent. I can never get enough of that feature. So that, that's been with us for a while now, but boy, it's just continuously one of the things that I look for all the time.
Big time.
Yep. As far as what's coming down the pike, I am just continually amazed at, the skills of our engineers and just their ingenuity and ability to keep us on the cutting edge. And there's always something new coming down the pike. And I'm one of those guys. That's not my skill set, man. I'm a word guy. I'm an edit guy. I'm a writer. Leave me out of the technological side of this app, but man, I love playing around with it.
Same here, man. Same. Well, Mark, man, I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with me. I know you're busy as heck, getting things done. And so I know we brought some really good information for Big Woods, Public Land, Whitetail. So I just really appreciate you and want to thank you for hopping on the podcast with me today.
Absolutely, man. Shortly here, I'm right in the middle of gathering some gear for our upcoming field tests. And I would, invite everybody to jump on HuntStand.com in the next couple months here and see what's going on with our compound bow field test, with our broadhead field test. Man, I always enjoy doing that kind of thing. And you know what? My goodness, every year it seems like there are products that just stand out and they surprise us. Stuff that you probably wouldn't even think would be just standout performers. And it's just great to see how that all comes together. But I would just say, hey, hold off on buying some of that new gear, your new bow or your new broadhead, until you hear some of the results of our field tests.
I love it, man. Well, Mark, thanks again for hopping on the podcast. I know definitely going to get you back on here. We're definitely going to talk more, get you on some of the Field Note Fridays that we're going to be launching here soon. So just want to thank you again for hopping on the podcast and see you on the next one, man.
Thanks for the opportunity, Will. I enjoyed it. Take care.
Shoo! There you have it, everybody. Another end to another great episode of the HuntStand podcast. We just want to thank Mark for coming on and letting us pick his brain, ask a ton of questions, and helping me get a little bit more familiar with this big woods public land whitetail hunting. Never done it before, but after talking with Mark, I'm trying to figure out how I can do that this fall. And hopefully y'all were able to take some of this information and apply it to your planning process. If you're doing this for the first time, or even if you've been doing it for a few years, hopefully you're able to take something from Mark and apply it to what you're doing. So we just want to thank y'all again for tuning in to the HuntStand podcast. If you haven't yet, make sure you go on over, subscribe, rate, review, Spotify or Apple. We greatly appreciate it. It helps us out a lot. And if y'all have questions for us, things y'all want us to talk about on the podcast, send us an email, podcast@huntstand.com. That way, your voice is definitely heard. I'm always checking out our social media outlets, YouTube, and other places to see if I can scour the internet to find some questions that y'all may want us to talk about. So if you want to make sure your voice is heard, email podcast@huntstand.com. That way we get your questions and we can talk about them here on the podcast. So again, y'all, we greatly appreciate y'all tuning in to the HuntStand podcast, and we'll see you on the next one.